So we have also Africa and the United States. Just take
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a huge honor and a privilege to address you today when we officially launch the new European Migrant Smuggling Center. My name is Crepinko and I'm the designated head of this newly created center. It is a huge honor to welcome the European Commissioner for Migration, Home Affairs and Citizenship, Mr. Avramopoulos, with us. It is a huge pleasure to welcome Mr. Jan-Kees from the Dutch Ministry for Security and Justice, the Director General for Migration, today with us. And of course, last but not least, I'm happy to see the Director of Europol taking part in this official launch. There could hardly be a better moment to launch the new European Migrant Smuggling Center than the Joint Operational Forum, having all the key partners joined here at Europol to discuss these important issues. Before I give the floor to the distinguished guests, I would like to thank Mr. Dimitris and my boss, Wil van Hemert, for chairing this operational forum. I would now like to ask the European Commissioner, Mr. Avramopoulos, for his opening remarks.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Watching that short film before, I was thinking that we must not accept that they are smarter and more powerful than us. During the last year, working very hard and very closely with Rob, we tried to build a wall, our wall, against all these criminals. And this meeting today, it comes at a very critical moment, I would say. It is already commonly known that more than 1 million desperate people have entered the European Union in 2015, risking their lives throughout the entire journey. Many of those have used smuggling networks to come here. In a crisis like today's, which affects the war-torn countries of origin, the people looking for safety, but also the host societies and their citizens, we have a rising and increasingly developed criminal network, which not only abuses the crisis and the vulnerability of people, but also makes huge profits. Not only is this criminal and legally unacceptable, it is morally repulsive. The refugee crisis that we are facing is complex and multidimensional and requires a comprehensive and joint approach. Migrant smuggling is a phenomenon that transcends national borders and can only be eradicated effectively through effective partnerships. That is why today is a more than timely occasion for the launch of the European Migrant Smuggling Centre at the second operational forum on migrant smuggling. The EU Action Plan against migrant smuggling, adopted in May last year, set the goal to turn this crime from a low-risk, high-profit business into a high-risk, low-profit one. We want the European Migrant Smuggling Centre to boost the fight against the smuggling networks all across Europe. It should make the most of analytical and operational expertise developed within Europol over the years. It should also build on the joint operation team focused on the Mediterranean, which was officially launched in March 2015. With the European Migrant Smuggling Centre, we want to go beyond the Mediterranean to cover the whole of the European Union and all forms of smuggling and routes. The centre will be the European information hub to fight migrant smuggling. It will provide support through analysis, cross-matching of data, experts on the ground, operational meetings, and joint operations. It will allow Europol to become more operational on the ground. Its presence at the hotspots will be strengthened through the deployment of mobile investigation support teams. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is for law enforcement agencies at national level to use all means available to track and seize the criminal assets of migrant smuggling. The Migrant Smuggling Centre will boost this expertise and enhance the exchange of best practices between member states. Cooperation between Europol and Frontex, which has been strengthened by the recent agreement allowing the exchange of personal data, will be crucial to facilitate the fight against people smugglers. But the new centre will only contribute to fighting smuggling if national law enforcement agencies share quality information. And they do so in real time. Let us be clear. We cannot afford to miss this opportunity to step up our fight against migrant smuggling. We cannot underestimate the vile but unfortunately increasing damaging role that smuggling networks play in the refugee crisis. We want this centre to also be the catalyst of cooperation with all relevant organizations, including with Interpol. But it is important to achieve a sharing of tasks that is effective, where every organization does what it is best placed to do and where duplication is avoided. It is crucial to step up cooperation with third countries. The European Union is already supporting projects, but additional and more targeted actions need to be implemented. With Turkey being the main transit country of irregular migration to the European Union, it is important to ensure cooperation with Turkish authorities against the smugglers. Following the deployment of a Frontex liaison officer to Turkey, we want to see more cooperation and more exchange of information between Europol and Turkey. Finally, I want to stress the role of an important new ally in the fight against smuggling. NATO vessels have arrived in the Aegean Sea to start monitoring the migration route between Turkey and Greece. NATO will be there to feed information to the national authorities in Greece and Turkey, to work with Frontex, and to focus its energy on the criminal smugglers fueling the migration crisis. Conclusions. It is with a great sense of urgency that I call on all of you, EU governments and third countries, EU agencies and international organizations to step up our efforts against migrant smuggling. We need to produce results. We have to show these criminals that they cannot continue business as usual. Our support in this endeavor should be considered a given. I count a lot on behalf of the European Commission to this very important mission of this center. Ladies and gentlemen, we must say that once again in public. We have declared a war against smugglers, and I hope that we shall come out winners. Thank you very much for your attention.
Commissioner Avramopoulos, thank you for your words and clear guidance for our future work. I would now like to ask Director General Goet to deliver his speech to us.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's good to see you all here today at the Forum of Europol and Interpol together. And thank you also, Mr. Rob Wainwright, for inviting us to the opening of the European Migrant Smuggling Center at your headquarters. After gaining experience in combating irregular migration with the Joint Operational Team MARE for almost a year, this new center is even better equipped to assist member states in countering migrant smuggling networks. And let me be clear, the need to fight these criminal networks is becoming more urgent every day. We have all seen the images of millions of women, men, and children fleeing their home countries, often in deplorable conditions. Many dream to reach Europe, to live in peace, to earn a living, and to send their children to school. In 2015, more than 1 million irregular migrants have entered the EU, most of them with help of migrant smugglers. Ruthless criminals, ruthless criminal networks who organize the migrant journeys, who take advantage of their dreams, their hopes, and their ambitions, and who seek nothing but profit. They sell a service they know they cannot deliver, a safe trip to a promised land. Instead, thousands of migrants have died while trying to reach Europe. The International Organization for Migration calculated the number of over 3,500 fatalities in the year 2015. The harsh truth is that we don't even know the exact number. Knowing this misery and grief is caused by criminals just to make a profit for themselves is a horrible thought. During the conference on migrant smuggling in Amsterdam this January, it was widely acknowledged that migrant smuggling has become an increasingly violent form of crime, which may involve serious physical and psychological violence and human rights abuse, exposing especially women and children to risks. As mentioned at the same conference, the Dutch presidency wants to emphasize that this is why we should all work together. This is why we should strengthen our networks. And this is why we should find new ways to stop these atrocities. In fact, we have already started. In both the European Agenda on Migration and in the renewed European Agenda on Security, migrant smuggling is a top priority. And with the EU Action Plan against migrant smuggling, the European Commission formulated a number of concrete actions. But talking about action does not mean we are already there. What looks good on paper should also be implemented in practice. We must invest in sustainable cooperation. And today's opening of this center is a great step forward. The European Migrant Smuggling Center will provide operational and strategic support to EU member states and its partners. This support is now more needed than ever. We can only address migrant smuggling effectively through a multidisciplinary approach and enhanced information sharing between different partners, from law enforcement to migration authorities, NGOs, EU agencies and third countries. In this context, the European Migrant Smuggling Center has an important role to play. It could serve as the main operational information hub and coordination entity on migrant smuggling within Europol. With the support of the center, member states will be in better position to gather evidence, mapping criminal organizations, gather financial intelligence, and identify and recover criminal assets. This helps us to hinder the criminal activities and to dismantle criminal organizations. We can even better detect, deter, and disrupt the migrant smuggling business model. Ladies and gentlemen, while countering migrant smuggling, we will not forget about the root causes. Migrants who need help should not have to travel through entire continents to find protection and perspective for the future. Cooperation with third countries is therefore essential. We have to unite behind a clear strategy to tackle the root causes of migration. We need more and better relief and reception facilities in safe countries in the region. This is how the complicated challenge of the current migration crisis can be met. And that is how the ruthless business model of migrant smuggling can come to an end. But this will take time. Until then, I believe that the opening of the European Migrant Smuggling Center did not come one day too early. I am confident this center will make a vital contribution in tackling migrant smuggling. I wish you the best of luck in carrying out this important work, and I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for this important input, Director General. I would like now to give the floor to the Director of Europol, Mr. Rob Wainwright.
Thank you, Robert. That's what happens when you come to the Netherlands. All of the speakers are exceptionally tall. Well, Director General, Commissioner, Robert, distinguished audience, our friends and colleagues from Interpol who have helped us to provide the platform for this excellent conference today, and so many colleagues from around the European Union and indeed many other countries. Thank you for being here today. Well, we've heard some very inspiring words. The Commissioner talked about the 1 million or so people that have come to Europe over the last year in desperate conditions. That's a figure that is 5 times higher than it was in 2014. Just as compelling, I think, is another statistic that you saw in the introductory video, which is that 90% of those have been facilitated on their journey to Europe, we think, by a criminal organization. That makes, therefore, the smuggling gangs at the heart of this crisis, certainly making it worse, certainly responsible for many of the lost lives and profiting at an unprecedented amount, $3 to $6 billion a year, we think, the fastest growing criminal sector in Europe. And last year was an important year in terms of the way in which organized crime groups around Europe and in the neighboring regions were attracted to this trade, attracted to the plight of this unprecedented migration crisis in order to make a quick buck and to prey on the desperate conditions of the people involved. We also know that the criminal market in this area, as indeed in many other areas of organised crime in Europe, is evolving very quickly. It's characterised by its international scale, by groups that are formed of multinational criminals operating in simultaneous criminal sectors, are groups that are highly flexible and adept at evading border controls, at switching routes very easily in response to changes also in law enforcement actions and tactics, for example. And it's also defined by the way in which a conglomeration of different service providers in the field of fake documentation, money transfers, transport services, for example, combine in a very enterprising way in a service-based criminal economy to support this very fastly growing criminal economy in Europe. We're concerned about how these groups are also operating in other criminal domains, such as drug trafficking, such as in the trafficking of human beings as well. We think some of those, at least, that have come to Europe are vulnerable to labour and sexual exploitation. This includes many young people, unaccompanied minors, some 10,000 or so we think that might have gone missing in the system and are the subject now of increasing police attention for their safety. We don't think that all of these are being exploited by criminal organisations, but some of them at least are vulnerable to this trade that is operating alongside the migrant smuggling problem in Europe. At Europol, and through our new European Counterterrorism Centre in particular, we are also very sensitive to any signs of terrorist groups exploiting the migratory routes. For the moment, we see no systematic evidence of that. Much less than 0.1% of all the people that arrived in Europe last year, much, much less than that, have any suggestion of any connection to terrorism. But there have, of course, been some notable cases, such as in two of the suspects that were responsible, we think, for the attacks in Paris last November. And that is currently the subject of significant lines of investigation. We are very sensitive and alert, therefore, to the fact, despite that there is no evidence of a systematic link at the moment, and we will continue to monitor that situation, indeed, very carefully. So this new dimension of the criminal scene behind the migration challenge facing Europe today has been discussed at this conference today, jointly organised by Europol and Interpol. It is the subject of a new report that Europol is publishing today on the problem of migrant smuggling in Europe. And of course, by the end of 2015, because of the seismic year that was for security terms in Europe, then Commissioner Avramopoulos and other political leaders decided the time has come to augment our capability, our operational strength in Europe to fight back against these migrant smuggling networks. Europol has heeded that call and has stepped up its efforts to investigate this crime. We're working particularly closely with our colleagues in Interpol and the Interpol member states around the world. We're increasing our engagement with US authorities, with many in the Balkans region and indeed in other countries around the world. And of course, enhanced cooperation inside the European Union with the national authorities who are supporting Europol's work with the highest ever levels of information exchange and operational coordination. With Frontex, that plays such an important frontline role in helping member states secure the external border of the European Union, and with many other European agencies, including Eurojust and the European Asylum Support Office. That work has led to Europol over the course of 2015, identifying now in our database a total of 40,000 migrant smuggling suspects. In that year alone, working on 1,500 cases of cross-border investigation, 100 suspected vessels that criminal groups are using in the Mediterranean and Aegean seas. But even that is not enough Even that is not enough, which is why, under the Commissioner's leadership and his proposals, we're establishing a new centre today that will be equipped with more manpower and more information capabilities and the ability to house national experts from many member states and other partners here in this building to provide a stronger platform for information sharing and operational coordination. We are determined, of course, to support the member states that are being mostly affected by this and also to provide operational capability on the front line. In Greece, for example, where we will deploy mobile investigative support teams to bring our unique analytical capabilities and other information service to the front line to make sure that they can deal with what are unprecedented security challenges that they face. So I'd like to thank the Commissioner in particular for the leadership he has shown, and indeed the support he has given to Europol by making sure that we will be equipped with more resources and the necessary political support at the highest level to launch this centre today in, I hope, a successful way. I'd like to thank the Dutch Presidency on behalf of the European Council also for the consistent expressions of support and levels of operational assistance that the Member States have given us as well. So we heed today the very clear mandate that the Commissioner gave us about taking the fight against the migrant smuggling networks. The new centre is already working hard. It will operate under the leadership of Robert, who has been the moderator at this brief event. But it will draw on the combined, very experienced resources and expertise of people from around the European Union that have between them years and years of experience of combating organised crime, serious criminal networks. And they therefore will put in place the necessary platform for Europe and its partners to fight back against these migrant smuggling networks, to make sure that they can no longer profit in such a way from this terrible trade in human misery. And with that in mind, I'd like to thank you for your attendance today, and I wish our new centre the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, dear speakers, for these important messages that came over. There shall be no doubt in a strong commitment not only of the members of the newly created centre, but of this organization as the whole, to do our utmost to work in this very important and challenging area. Allow me, before the closure of this launch, to invite the representatives of the media to follow our colleagues from the corporate communications to the press room, where you will have the possibility to have some one-on-one interviews, not only with our speakers, but also with the executive director from Interpol, with the deputy director, Van Heemert, and myself, if that is wished. Thank you all for the attention, and I wish the delegates of the conference very fruitful workshops in the afternoon. Thank you.
Very black.